And what is up? Welcome into the podcast, The Rundown. I'm your host, Tyler Cupp. On this edition, we will look at some of the matchups coming up this Friday night in high school football. Region play began last week, so we will dive deep into some of the region matchups coming up. We'll look at the top 10 rankings in all of the classifications, 5A to 1A, and we'll also have a special guest interview. My guest this week will be Benji Greeson in Abbeville. He's a local sportscaster, and Abbeville is rolling once again. They're going for the 5-peat up in Abbeville, so we will talk to him coming up later on in the show. But Palmetto Preps, want to tell you, is a local media source focused on everything, covering the entire state of South Carolina. I was actually exploring the site earlier this week and finding out that, hey, you can just click on a page and you get all the scores from this Friday night. And on Thursday nights, you'll be able to look at all the games coming up the next Friday night. So it is your source for not just games Friday to Friday and scores and all that kind of stuff, but also looking at the top prospects around the state of South Carolina. You also want to check out the Twitter page. They put a lot of features on there. They spotlight players, coaches, and of course we have podcasts, a ton of interviews coming up, recruiting news, player rankings, and so much more. Check out the free email list. Links can be found all over the content that we provide for you. So check it out, palmettopreps.com. All right, so I'm going to start the show with something that actually happened very recently. I didn't plan to do this until last night, and I got approval from Chris Clark of Gamecock Central. He helps put this together on their website with palmettopreps.com, and something perturbed me, something upset me, and I want to get into it. So first and foremost, there was an article that I shared on my Facebook page that a lot of people shared, basically about local sportscasters and how it's a dying breed. There aren't many of us left, all right? Yeah, you've got your, college football, you've got your NFL, you've got your college sportscasters and your pro sportscasters of all the sports, but high school broadcasting is still it's still there, but it's a dying art. It's a dying breed. It's a group of folks that do it because of the passion. They do it for their community. They do it for the school, and they do it for advertisers that want to promote these kids and, want to pump them up and want to support these kids, want to support these high schools. So the article was, basically just saying how there's not many of us left. And I am one of those people. I've been doing it over 10 years. And quite frankly, I'm thinking about getting out of it. I'll still do ball games part-time, but full-time, I've thought very hard about, maybe doing something else. It's something that takes a toll on you. It's something that you do because you love it. You do for it passion. And let me make no bones about it. When I go out there on Friday night, I'm happy. When I go out there on a Tuesday calling softball or a Friday calling high school football or, a Thursday night basketball game in high school, I'm in my happy place. I'm in my zone. I'm prepared, and I'm having a good time. But the stress, it can come on you because it's not just about doing the ball game. We don't make money doing that. Some guys might make 100, 200, 300 there, but they're not rolling in the dough. Nobody does high school sportscasting as a full-time job. Nobody in the state of South Carolina. They do other things. They sell ads Monday through Friday, like myself. They're recording news. They're recording weather. They're going out to local events. They're promoting. They're developing marketing strategies for local businesses. The game itself is really just the tip of the iceberg. That's the fun part. That's where you get to release, you get to have fun. So when doing high school football, one of the things you do is to call a school, and just as a courtesy, you want to make sure that the school is okay with you coming to set up the broadcast. Just as a courtesy, you always ask them, at least that's my and our policy at the local radio station I work for. And you ask if you have a spot. You ask if you have power accessible. You ask, do you have a phone line? Do you have hardwire internet? The things you need to set up whatever type of equipment you may have. And when I asked this question, I was led to a district office. Now, let me say this right here and now. I'm not going to call out the district office. I'm not going to say anybody by name. There are people listening to this that will know. I've told the story to some people, but just for the sake of argument, I want to leave the names out because it doesn't really matter who the people are. I have friends and coaches and administrators that work in this particular district, And I'm not really blaming one person. But when I was led to the district, they told us that it's a $200 fee to broadcast a high school football game in their district. We write the check to the school, and we're allowed to broadcast. Now, let me say this. That's an inordinate amount of money. That's a ridiculous amount of money to broadcast a high school football game. And whoever made that fee, I would tell them that to their face. I had someone call and get a statement from the district office asking why they charged this fee. And they said, quote, this is the quote from this particular district office, that, quote, we were consistent and fair, that they, saying we, the local radio stations, make money off advertising dollars. Their football teams make money, but not a lot of money. It goes to the cost of having games. We tried to set a nominal fee, but one that was fair. Well, $200 isn't fair, okay? It's not. $50, okay. $100, walking the line. Radio stations do not affect the gate of the games. They don't. In 2019, they really don't. Now, in 2019, we are a lazy society, all right? If we want to find the score of a game, we're not going to turn on the TV. We're going to pick up our phones, all right? We're going to pick up our phones and look at Twitter, look at Facebook, and we're going to get the score from there. But those same people, if they're going to go to a local high school sporting event, they're going to go to a local high school sporting event. You understand what I'm trying to say? 3 things affect the gate, people. Winning, losing, and weather. All right? If you're 6-0, 7-0, team's having a great year, fans are going to hear about that, and they're going to be like, hey, let's go check out Camden. Let's go check out Abbeville. Let's go check out Dutch Fork. They're having a great year. If a team is losing, if a team hasn't won a game, then some fans might just not come out. But guess who keeps you in tune with how those teams are doing? It's the local radio station. It's the local TV station. It's your local newspaper. It's your local media members giving exposure to your high schools. Because if you didn't have the local media, then you wouldn't know anything about your local high schools. Little Johnny's not going to know. There are kids in high school that don't know the record of their own football teams or their own sporting teams. A lot of those kids don't even care. It's just a fact. They got 100 other things to worry about. Okay? So 3 things affect the gate: winning, losing, and weather. A local radio station does not make as much money as you think it does off advertising. You know, my station in particular, we lump high school football, Clemson, South Carolina, and Carolina Panthers all in one package, okay? And on a Friday night, we're shelling out money for a board engineer, okay? We're shelling out money for streaming services so we can stream the game so people outside the state who can't make the game can listen. Local radio stations do these games as a public service to the community. And there aren't many of us left. I could sit here and maybe name you 15 local radio stations that still do high school football in the state of South Carolina. I might get to 20. There really isn't a lot. Think about that. 15 stations out of all the high schools in the state of South Carolina. And some radio stations only do football. There are other stations like mine that does basketball, baseball, softball, football. Some do wrestling, some do volleyball. And we don't affect the gate. We're giving exposure to your teams. We're giving exposure to your kids so that family members, alums that can't make the game, that get off work late, that can't make the game, are going to turn on the radio. Some people have no dog in the fight. Some people don't care about what's happening with Lugoff, Elgin, and Camden, but they like listening to sports on the radio because that's still a lost art in 2019. Some people like listening to sports on the radio no matter the teams. It's kind of like nostalgia. It's like listening to a baseball game on the radio. Imagine that. Listening to baseball on the radio. Not watching it on your phone. And listen, I am not that guy that is rah-rah for local radio. I realize that it's 2019 and you're listening to a podcast, all right? Yeah, you're not listening to the radio, you're listening to a podcast. So I get it. You're listening to podcasts, you're watching YouTube, you're listening to iTunes, Pandora. There's so many options, Sirius Satellite Radio. But local radio is there to give you exposure to local events, local things that are happening in your community, and local sports. And school districts want to charge $200 to do that. $200 for two teams, I might add, that may not even make the postseason, might not even make the playoffs. So we're going to charge $200 for those two teams. If you can give me a better reason, if you tell me it's $200 to use your phone line, okay. All right, fine. I'll use another form of equipment. If you tell me it's $200 to take up space in your press box, ridiculous, but okay. But you actually said to someone, a statement from the district office, it goes to the cost of having games. Well, maybe the attendance of your games aren't very good. Maybe your teams aren't very good. Maybe that $200 covers the cost of the gate workers. Maybe it goes to your gate. If you tell me that, it's a little more okay. I still don't like it, but it's more honest. The point I'm trying to make is this, all right? We do a lot to get these games on the air so that people can hear these games not just in our local community of 10,000 people, not just in our listening area of 6 counties, whatever it may be. I'm just using mine as an example. But people who are listening online, I get a text. I don't even know this person, all right? She sends me a direct message on Facebook. But every time we're on air on Friday night, she sends me a message to make sure that we say her name because she's listening from New York City so she can hear her nephew play high school football on Friday night for a team that's not going to make the playoffs. That's what we're talking about here. I'll tell you a story. We will cover teams outside of our listening area. Check that. That's not outside of our listening area. In our listening area, outside of our county. Fairfield Central is in our listening area. Andrew Jackson is in our listening area. Spring Valley is in our listening area. They're right outside of our county. So just outside of our county, but still in our listening area. You can hear us crystal clear in Winsboro, in Blythewood, in Northeast Columbia, and Kershaw. I took the chance of selling advertising for a playoff game. And let me say that really quick. Yes, we do, the radio station, make money when we go out and sell advertising for the postseason because we got to cover the cost of what the South Carolina High School League charges us. The South Carolina High School League will charge us $200 for a first-round playoff game for a Class 5A football. They'll charge, I think, $50 for 3A, $100 for 4A maybe, something like that. Okay? They're charging us. So we got to cover that fee. We got to cover a board-out fee. And it would be nice for us to get paid a little bit too on the postseason since we're going out and selling that extra advertising. Oh, and yeah, when we sell advertising, that is an opportunity for businesses that don't have the local media coverage. Nobody covers Winsboro. Barely does anybody cover Winsboro or the town of Kershaw. So it's a coup for those local businesses to have their voice heard, advertise their business on a local radio station, and also support those kids and support that local team. So, I know I made your sidebar there. But what I was trying to get at, I did a game for Fairfield Central. Fairfield Central had not been aired on this station for over 10 years. We had not attempted it. But I had the idea of doing it because they were really good, and I had a lot of connections in Winsboro, sold some advertising, yes, made a little money. A lot of folks got their voices heard and supported Fairfield Central, and I didn't know if anybody was going to be listening. I didn't know what type of audience we had in Winsboro, but I find out the first night, because that first night we did a game, I got a direct message from a guy I didn't know. Somehow he found me on social media, and he said, "Hey man, I'm in Afghanistan. I'm listening to the game on your mobile app. Thank you for doing Fairfield Central football." That's why we do it. That's why we do it. Messages like that is why you do it on Friday night. Win or lose, I got a guy listening in Afghanistan. You know, I've got somebody listening in New York City. Everything that's going on in New York, the big city, all types of things you could be doing on Friday night. This lady is sitting in her house, and she's got her app on her phone listening to high school football. That's why you do it. You do it to keep people connected, and you do it for those kids. And you do it for a high school football program that doesn't get a lot of coverage. And they get it that night. And you do it for those advertisers that don't really get a whole lot of people coming to them selling advertising. Think about that. There's businesses that don't have people knocking down the door wanting to sell them advertising. But that's why you do it. So I know that was me being on the soapbox, and I'm sorry. That's a 15-minute rant, but it needed to be said. And I want to end with this. This is not me wanting sympathy for little old me, local sportscaster, or local sportscaster in the upstate, the low country, anywhere in the country. I'm not trying to get sympathy for us, the dying breed of local sportscasters. I'm asking you to consider that there are people still doing this, not making money. We make money in other ways. I work 3 jobs, all right? I do a lot to stay fed, to pay my bills, do a lot of things. And high school football is fun for me, but it's also important to the community that my station serves. I'm asking for these school districts that want to charge this $200 fee to consider that, to consider we're giving exposure to your school. We're going to help attendance of your school. I'm doing a game for your school, and somebody, an alum, hears it on the radio that they're doing well, that's going to boost attendance the next week. Just might. It just might. It doesn't hurt attendance, I can tell you that. I'm asking them to consider that there aren't many of us left. Why charge us $200 when we're trying to do you a favor? We're trying to do a good thing. And there aren't many good things left in this world. Not many. We're trying to do a positive thing. There's nothing negative about what we do. We're not exposing businesses. We're not stealing money. We're not exposing kids. No. We're giving them a platform. We're giving them an opportunity. Give us the same. Give us the same type of opportunity. So there you go. All right. So that's my little soapbox. $200 to broadcast high school football game is ridiculous. And I was really holding back because I don't want to call out the school district. But many of you listening, I'm sure, because a lot of you listening are people just supporting me and, know Chris Clark and may have heard the story. It's gotten some hits on Twitter. But, maybe we can work something out. I'm going to email a lot of the ADs and ask them to consider taking another look at this. Because I don't know how many school districts in the state of South Carolina charge that kind of fee. I know one school district in the upstate charges $50, and my general manager has no problem paying $50, but $200 is ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I'm on salary. I don't get a check for doing a game on a Friday night, by the way. That doesn't happen. My color guys, my color commentators, they're volunteers. We sacrifice our Friday nights, our families, plans that we want to have with our friends. We make a commitment. That's what we're doing. So $200 is asking a lot. That's ridiculous. So there it is. All right, let's get to some high school football, all right? You don't want to hear me go on a tangent anymore about that. All right, so high school football region play started last week. For most of the state, I know some 2A schools probably started 2 weeks ago, but most of the state started region last week. And, I think I said it on one of the podcasts, is that region play, everybody's 0-0. It's a new record, okay? And I covered Lugoff Elgin back in 2010, and it was a season of which they started the season at 1-5. All right, follow me here. Started the season 1-5, and then went on to win the region. When the region play started, I think they went 4-1, something like that. Maybe they started 1-4, but they went 4-1 the rest of the way and won their region and got a first round playoff game. So it doesn't really matter what your record is to start. It's about how you finish. So a lot of the teams that started 0-1, you still got a chance. You still absolutely got a chance. There's some must-win games out there in the state of South Carolina. There's a lot of winnable games that teams have got to win to give themselves a chance to get into the postseason. And no matter how bad you played or the tough competition that you played in the first 2 months of the season, it all matters right now. So we'll see how it shapes out. All right, so let's look at the 5A rankings. Dutch Fork, no surprise, they are number 1. They will play River Bluff. So a battle of undefeated teams here. And, you know, I don't think River Bluff is going to be able to beat Dutch Fork. I mean, I just think Dutch Fork is going to be undefeated until probably the third or fourth round of the postseason. That's when they'll be challenged, at least. I think Dutch Fork's going to go back to the state. But I don't see them challenging. The only thing about River Bluff I like in terms of matchup-wise against the Silver Foxes is that River Bluff might be the first team that Dutch Fork has seen that actually runs right at you. I don't think Dutch Fork has seen a team like that. River Bluff runs the football very well. Braden Walker, 1,400-yard rusher a year ago, and they run right at you. So that could be a challenge for Silver Foxes early, but I think Dutch Fork wins there. Burns, they're undefeated. They're number 2 in the 5A rankings. They will be at Malden. Malden having a good year at 4-2. Fort Dorchester, they are idle this week. They're number 3. Number 4 is Dorman. They got a big one with Gaffney. Gaffney, of course, ranked number 6 in 5A, so you got a top 6 matchup there. Number 4, Dorman against number 6, Gaffney. Sumter is idle. And let me talk about Sumter for just a moment. I saw Sumter last week against Lugoff Elgin. They're good, man. They're really good. They are huge up front on the offensive and defensive lines. Ranked number 5, of course, in 5A. They've got a defensive end that just got offered by the South Carolina Gamecocks. They've got a safety that's already committed to the Gamecocks, O'Donnell Fortune. They've got a wide receiver who's already committed to UNC Chapel Hill. And I'm going to tell you right now, Tylee Craft is going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem for the ACC in years to come. That's one of the best receivers I think I've seen on a high school football field. Who else did I like? Their backup running back. I don't remember the name. I think it was a Nathan Harris maybe. Really good back. It would not shock me if he's a Power 5 guy in a year because he's only a junior. So the Sumter Gamecocks, they could make a run. Only giving up 8 points a game is Sumter. Clover, they're still undefeated. That's 6-0. They've got Northwestern. Carolina Forest, they will be at South Florence. And T.L. Hanna rounds out the top 10. Let's go to Class 4A. Let's see here. 4A rankings, where are we at here? 4A rankings, no surprise. Myrtle Beach is still number 1. They will have no problem with taking on Darlington this week. Daniel is number 2. They take on number 7 Wren this week, so a challenge for Daniel. South Point, a little bit of surprise here. I don't think a lot of people expected South Point to be undefeated, and I know that sounds crazy. There was so much talk about South Point getting a new coach and having some players transfer and things like that, but South Point's right there, and they get a winnable game in Lancaster. So watch out for the Stallions again this year. North Myrtle Beach will take on Wilson. This is number 4 against number 5. Wilson ranked number 5. North Myrtle ranked number 4. And how about this? North Myrtle only giving up an average of 4 points a game. How about those Chiefs? AC Flora, they're still undefeated. They're ranked at number 6. They will be at Lakewood. I think AC Flora goes undefeated this season. I think they passed their last test, their last challenge. They may get challenged a little bit against Orangeburg-Wilkinson just because OW has great athletes there. Let's see here. East Side will play Berea. Belton Honeypath, number 9. They'll take on Palmetto. And Greenville will play Blue Ridge. Greenville 4-2. Blue Ridge is 3-3. All right, let's see. I just lost my rankings. Hang on. So let's go to Class 3A. Okay. All right, Dillon, number 1. They'll take on Loris. Chapman will play at Carolina. Camden, they'll be back off a bye. They will take on Fairfield Central. This is my sneaky good game of the week. Camden at Fairfield. Do not be shocked if the Griffins make the upset here. Not saying they win, but I think this will be a very close game for Camden. Camden hasn't seen a defense like Fairfield. Griffins play very good on defense. Chester will play host to Keenan. Interesting about Chester, a lot of people are not sure just how good the defending 3A champions are. Chester was leading by 3 touchdowns over Indian Land last Friday. And check this out. This is what you love about high school football. This is the crazy finishes you hear about. I was texting the Camden coach who was scouting Chester and Indian Land this past Friday. He said that Chester was leading Indian Land by 3 touchdowns. Indian Land comes back, scores the touchdown to make it 51-50 with like 30 seconds left in the game. Indian Land has one of those penalties where it was an excessive celebration. They spun the football in the end zone, and the poor kid got penalized for it. So they marked the field goal or extra point back 10, 15 yards, whatever it is, and Chester blocks the extra point. Chester wins 51-50. Unreal. That's wild. May River, shout out to Rodney Summers, one of my favorite guys in the state. He will play Ridgeland Hardyville with his Sharks. They're ranked number 5th. Gilbert, ranked number 6. They're idle. Wade Hampton is idle. They're number 7. Aner, ranked number 8, will play Marion. Strom Thurmond, ranked number 9, will play Swansea. And Woodruff will play rival Union County. Woodruff is ranked 10th. In Class 2A, Abbeville will play host to Fox Creek. Barnwell will be at Whale Branch. Number 3, Southside Christian is at Christ Church. Christ Church only 3-4 so far this year. Oceanside Collegiate at Burke. Timberland is idle. They're ranked number 5. Bamberg Earhart is ranked number 6. They will go to Allendale Fairfax. That's a good game there. Allendale Fairfax, that's a tough place to play. Andrew Jackson, they're ranked number 8. They are idle. Gray Collegiate, ranked number 9. They're going to Columbia. Gray Collegiate with a big upset last week. They upset Lamar last Friday night. Whale Branch and Woodland are both tied at 10th. Whale Branch takes on Barnwell, and Woodland will be idle. So there you go. Class 1A, Wagner Sally is at North. North is 0-6 this year. Green Sea Floyds will take on Timmonsville, Lamar, and Lakeview, ranked 3rd and 4th in the rankings. They're both idle. Blackville Hilda will play Ridge Spring Minetta. C.E. Murray, ranked 6th, is idle. Branchville will play Cross, Ridge Spring Minetta at Blackville Hilda. We just mentioned that. Great Falls, Baptist Hill, ranked 9th and 10th in the rankings, are both idle. So those are your top 10 rankings and your matchups for this week in high school football. I'm not going to call any upsets here other than Fairfield possibly beating Camden. Whale Branch and Barnwell, that's a top 10 matchup there. I don't really see anything else. This isn't a great week for matchups in high school football. I mean, North Myrtle Beach and Wilson, that's probably your game of the week, I'd imagine, right? 2 teams there in the PD. North Myrtle and Wilson ranked 4th and 5. 2 undefeated teams going at it there. That's probably your game of the week. And again, another game of the week in 5A. I don't think a lot of people were picking River Bluff, but you got 2 undefeated teams there, Dutch Fork and River Bluff. So there you go. All right, let's go right into our interview. This is something we're probably going to start doing separately. I'm going to call it Sportscaster Sitdown on the Palmetto Preps podcast. I'm going to try to do this once a week or once every 2 weeks. I'm going to take one of my allies in sportscasting, sit them down, talk about the team they cover, and then go into their path to sportscasting, go into the whys they do what they do, and some fun road stories, and just basically talk to them about sportscasting in general in high school football. So we start with Benji Greeson. This was a phone interview that the quality was actually pretty good. So Benji Greeson talks about Abbeville for about half of the interview, and then the other half of the interview, Benji gets into his path to sportscasting and why he does what he does. So this is Benji Greeson out of Abbeville. Here's that interview. Tyler Cupp here on the Palmetto Preps podcast as we start our first edition of the Sportscaster Sitdown with someone that I met last year. Only met him in person one time, but he was nothing but kind and nice to me, and respect him greatly for what he does. He's kind of a local sports guy like myself, doing it in a small town and doing it as good as anybody that I know. He is Benji Greeson up in Abbeville, WZLA 92.9, WZLAradio.com. He does the Abbeville Panther games on Friday night and does previews on their website and just does a fantastic job. Benji, first off, I want to talk about these Abbeville Panthers and how they're doing so far this year. Thank you for doing this sit-down interview with me. Four-peat Abbeville has gone through, winning 4 straight state championships, going for the 5-peat.
Yeah, the Panthers are they're rolling again this year. It's been a fun ride, 4 2A state championships in a row. And until this year, we had 4 consecutive different quarterbacks as well for those state championships. So that's what one little neat caveat there about Abbeville. But a Friday night is still exciting. There's some games that you go into that you kind of know are maybe aren't going to be that close of a game, so you have to get creative, I guess, to keep the listeners tuned in. And then there are other games, obviously, that are very exciting. So just blessed. I think continuity is one thing as far as Abbeville goes. Coaching staff, head coach Jamie Nichols, this is his 15th season. He's hired one person in 15 years, and that's the defensive coordinator and athletic director, Tad DeBose. Here in Abbeville, Coach Nick says that's the only person he's ever hired there. So this staff has basically been intact. Offensive coordinator Mark Smith, he has been involved, whether just a position coach or a coordinator with the football team since 1981 in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So, these guys know what they're going to do before they do it, and the players know exactly what to expect. It's a routine. It's a schedule. Of course, they still have fun with it, but each one of these teams have been different. This year's team, they're 5-0 right now. Their first game got canceled out because of weather, but so they're 5-0 right now. Just won their first region game of the year, and we'll be back home with another region game against Fox Creek this coming Friday night, and looking forward to another great contest there. But yeah, Panthers they're rolling. They're on a historical run here. The Drive for 5 is the hashtag that all the kids use, and people that are excited with the program's never been done in South Carolina before. Nobody's ever won 5 in a row. So these kids are really going to try to give it their all, which they do every week, and try to make that come to fruition.
Talking to Benji Greeson out of Abbeville, WZLA 92.9, voice of the Abbeville Panthers. And Benji, I got to ask you this. I went to Abbeville last year for a playoff game. The North Central Knights, one of the teams in my county that we cover, went up there. And you kind of covered this a little bit in your opening statement, but the way the team and the town shuts down for high school football, it is truly one of those towns. And, you hear about a town shutting down at 4 or 5 o'clock, and everybody heads to the high school football stadium on Friday nights. Abbeville is truly that. I was so impressed with what I saw. I'm curious, though, you talked about the coaching staff and the continuity, but what is the drive for the players year in and year out? Is it that tradition? Is it just, the drive to keep winning championship after championship? What do you see from the players? And I'm just amazed at how they keep on going. I mean, they're going for the 5-peat.
I'm also currently for this year am president of the Rotary Club here in Abbeville. Rotary International, their Rotary is all over the world, but our chapter here in Abbeville, one of the things that we do is we for 53 years now, they've sponsored what's called the Rotary Bowl, and that's where they get all the rec league teams from the area, and they play at Height Stadium on Dennis Botts Field. And they get to walk down the aisle, and they get to, play on the high school field. And it's a really, really big deal to these kids. These kids look up to the high school kids. And we're talking, 7, 8, the 9 and 10, and then the 11 and 12. So those are the 3 groups that our recreation department put out there. And man, when the high school kids are out there, you would think, by looking at these kids, that they're superheroes. They want to wear that A. They want to be on that field. They want to be a Panther. And it's just tradition. It's history. It's generations. I mean, you go back 20, 30, 40 years, you're seeing a lot of the same last names on the field. I think Coach Nichols right now is coaching people's children. When he first got here, he's now coaching the kids of the guys that he was here in his first years here. So it's just special. Wearing the A here, it means something. They have a saying that the A's not on you, is in you. And it's a family tradition almost, not to not to break out any country songs here, but people get together and they tailgate. It starts about 5 o'clock, and have tents up and barbecue smokers, and people's civic organizations and town events. They plan around the football schedule because High Stadium's going to be packed out. There's it's going to be a couple thousand there on the Abbeville side, regardless of when the game is or who they're playing, and it's an event. And you only get so many of them. It's only at the most you're going to get 5, 6, 7 regular season games a year. So it's a special time, and everybody really buys in.
Talking to Benji Greeson of Abbeville WZLA. Benji, before we get your sportscasting path, and I want to hear some fun road stories because I know you do a lot of traveling in 2A football. The makeup of this team, give me maybe one thing that's different from last year. I know they do have some returners, but also who's the biggest challenge left in 2A? I mean, I don't know if it's in their region or if it's going to be in the postseason itself. Who do you think poses the biggest threat to this Abbeville Panther team?
I'll answer that the last question first. Any given Friday, everybody says that. It's hard to make people believe that when Abbeville's been on the ridiculous streaks that they've been on. But I'll tell you, the Saluda Tigers. This is a region game coming up in a couple weeks that is it's going to have everybody's attention. Saluda. They lost to Southside Christian a couple weeks ago, but it was just, I think, maybe by a field goal. But Saluda has some serious talent, speed, and really good defense. They like to throw it around all over the place with a really, really good senior quarterback there. So regular season-wise, although, you can lose any game, that's the one right now that everybody is kind of pointing at as being the biggest challenge so far here. In the regular season. Human nature, you compare things, right? You always compare, this wing restaurant over here the wings are a little better than this place, or this burger joint, so a little better than this. Everybody wants to compare this year's team to last year's team, and it's really unfair to do that to these kids because last year was really a historic season. I mean, you go 14-0 and you beat. I think the average score of the games were 42-6 for the entire season, and it was almost like a Ferrari. You had multiple year starters in the backfield. Abbeville, they call the A-bone offense. It's a variation of the double wing, but it's run out of a shotgun. There's motion. There's eye candy. But it's a power run game, and it's sweeps, it's jets, it's options, it's RPOs. I mean, they do so much out of that one set right there. But you had Courtney Jackson, who was a Division I running back there. You had a guy named Jabrian Sanders, who was a Division I running back there, and then you had another fullback who was a 3-year guy, Dominic Washington. Well, all those guys graduated, so you've got a brand new backfield this year. You've got an offensive line that only lost one player. He was a senior. So the offensive line comes along. You've got a Shrine Bowler, Trey Jones, who is a South Carolina commit. He's your starting left tackle on this offense. And you return a quarterback for the first time in 5 years. So everybody was kind of wary about, everybody's gone, but is it going to compare to last? No, it's not. It's different. This is a different makeup. It's a different team. This is a blue-collar team. This is a bunch of guys that I call them thumpers. I mean, they're out there. It is a physical, grind it out, pound it out, not necessarily 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They still got plenty of skill guys with breakaway speed. J.D. Moore, returning quarterback, who's actually flip-flopping between quarterback and wingback this year. He was timed at a 4.4 at a college camp earlier this year, so he's getting a lot of carries. You got new guys. Cruz Temple has stepped up. Thomas Buford now the quarterback, Tyrell Haddon, another one of the wing backs there. And then junior that nobody heard of broke on the scene. He's actually leading the team in rushing right now. His name's Martico Jackson, and he's playing that A-back slot there. So just new faces. People don't really know him yet, but this is a team that methodically works their way down the field and just kind of pounds people into mercy. Honestly, it's last week against Batesburg-Leesville, they get the opening drive and they go 16 plays and take 7 minutes off the clock. The opening drive. I mean, so over half of the first quarter is gone. And this has happened multiple times. They just grind it out, sustain the drives, and eat up a lot of time, eat up a lot of yards. And then defensively, you got another Shrine Bowler over there on the defensive side, Jalen Schuler, big 6'3", linebacker, huge wingspan, covers the field, kind of plays that hybrid safety / linebacker spot. Got some real thumpers at linebacker. You got a great defensive line. I think the smallest guy on the D-line is Carson Smith, and he goes 6'2", about 270. And he's a absolute motor, never stops kind of guy there. And then you got all the big 300-pound wide bodies across there, one of which, Ardarius Burton, they call him Bone. And Bone won player of the game last week, had 2.5 sacks, just terrorized people in the backfield. So defense and really just grinded out offense, completely different than the high-flying style from last year, but it's been just as effective.
Talking to Benji Greeson of Abbeville, WZLA. Benji, want to spend a couple minutes, your path to sportscasting. I've been doing it about 7 years. I'm curious, what brought you in? When did the bug bite you, and how did it bite you? How did you get started?
Time now, about 7 years. Actually, when I was 17 years old, I answered an ad in the local paper for an internship at the AM station that we had here in Abbeville. It was WABV AM 1590, my very first radio job. And once you get into radio, it's the bug bites you and you can never shake it. So
yep.
Worked there for a couple years, did softball, volleyball, did some sports broadcasting through them. Kind of left that, tried to get into the, I was in real estate and mortgage lending and then just other jobs, but ended up finding my way back to radio here. And, of course, we do the morning show, got a couple sports shows, write for a couple websites. And then I started doing McCormick High School football about 4 years ago. No, I'm sorry, 7 years ago. Did that for 3 years, and this is going into our 5th year here with Abbeville. So it's been a blessing, man. It really has. I played for Abbeville, graduated there, and now get to kind of relive some of that every Friday night in the booth. My partner, Wayne Stevenson, the voice of the Panthers, he's been the play-by-play guy there for 28 years. So he's got a lot of stories from on the road, and we meet so many nice people, you included, and it's about the relationships and the people and experiences and really promoting these kids. If we're shining a light on ourselves, we're doing it wrong. These kids are in the prime, hadn't even started the prime of their life, and when they're trying hard and working hard, we try to shine as much light on them as possible. And who knows, maybe there's something we do, an article we write, or something that we may say on the radio one day might get this kid noticed by somebody, somewhere that may have never heard of them, and it could lead to a great life for them. So whatever we can do to help the program, the team, and these kids, man, that's kind of our goal not only every Friday night, but, throughout the week as well.
You actually touched on the theme of this week's podcast, and that is the fact that local radio, local media is really the only ones that promote these kids, because high schools don't have, their own stations. They might have their own paper, but their paper only goes out to the students. So I want to ask you, as someone who else does their games as an alum. I am an alum of Lou Elgin. I'm the play-by-play voice for the Demons, of course. What does that mean to you? That's got to be a lot of pride, and you probably hear from a lot of guys you went to school with that, may not care as much about the team, but they're listening because of you. They're listening because they want to hear their buddy do the game on a Friday night, and there's still a little school pride left. And you might even give them that school pride on any given Friday night listening to Abbeville Panther football.
Yeah, man, it's great, and with the advent of apps and ways to stream, a lot of people have left town, and of course, social media, it kind of keeps everybody connected. So it's really neat. Every Friday night, you can set your clock by it. I'll start getting messages, people, hey, I'm listening in Texas, or we're in Ohio this weekend, or couldn't make the game. We're at the beach, but man, y'all really makes it sound like we're there. I mean, that is very encouraging. I love getting messages like that. And you're right. Local radio, it will never die. And you can have all the podcasts. You can have all of the internet radio. You can be syndicated across the world like so many different people are, and even television. With guys that kind of parlayed a local show into a national thing, like a Paul Feinbaum, for instance. Those guys, they have their spot in the world, obviously, but local radio, it's got its own niche. And I heard Coach Dabo Sweeney say one time, he said, blossom where you planted, bloom where you planted. Do as great as you can where you're at for as long as you can. I mean, and that kind of holds a little truth there. I don't think local radio will ever go away because of the local feel. We get people reach out. It's like, man, I miss home. Y'all make me feel like we're back home, and it's not just for the people that moved away. High school football brings a lot of people in together, and it's generational. There's people that listen that are, they can't get to the games. They might be in their 80s or 90s and just not physically able to get there anymore. But that radio is plugged in. That radio is plugged. We had a gentleman who had fallen ill and hadn't missed a game in 40-ish, 50 maybe years. I mean, it was an impressive streak. And his daughter showed him or fixed up his iPad in the hospital where he could listen to the game. And he just thought that was the most amazing invention ever. I mean, it was almost witchcraft that they were doing, where he could listen to the game on this little computer thing, and so it's little things like that keep you going, that it lets you know that you're doing something right. And with all the people that tune in, all of our wonderful sponsors that trust us to promote their product and to get it in front of people. That's really what drives the whole thing there, man. But it is, I'm sure you and I and every high school broadcaster in America is not gonna become filthy rich broadcasting high school football games, but it's a blessed life we lead, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Abbeville appreciates you guys because it's about the community. It's about the past and previous fans. It's about those advertisers that want to support those kids in that high school. All right, finishing up with Benji Greeson out of Abbeville, WZLA 92.9. Two things. I want you to give me your favorite place to broadcast a football game. And don't cop out. Do not say at Abbeville. Somewhere outside of Abbeville. So your favorite place to broadcast the game outside of home. And the wildest road story. There's something wild that happened on the road that would only happen on a Friday night.
Well, the second favorite place to broadcast is easy. That's Benedict College. That's if you've made it to Benedict,
very nice.
It's been a pretty successful season, yep. And luckily we've been there for the last 4 years in a row. So, yep, Benedict, first class. They always treat us so nice there, and they really roll out the red carpet for us and make us feel like we're somebody. So,
good answer.
We really enjoy going there, and broadcasting from Benedict. I tell you, other than that, this year was really cool, man. I had never been to Newberry High School before, and this was my first trip there, and they were very welcoming, very hospitable, and their digs there is pretty nice. So really nice press box. They had a full food spread and all for us, which that's pretty rare in high school football. But really nice box, really nice people. So Newberry is up there. As far as the wildest thing on the road, I don't remember what town we stopped in, but it was one of our statistician. He gets out of the car. He has to go into a gas station there, but it was sketchy. There was kind of a few minutes there where it was like, all right, are we going to have to really just squall tires and get out of here, or find our way out of the park? I'm not real sure, it was not team related, whatsoever. But I'm trying to think of anything else that we were going down to Fox Creek. As a matter of fact, they play at Lions Municipal Stadium. It's kind of a shared municipal park down there, and we went through a tornado on the way down, and that was crazy. Trees and tree limbs and, stuff laying everywhere. And it was a little drive down there. So when we got to the site, it wasn't bad, but there was thank goodness for GPS then, because we had to go down all kind of back roads and dirt roads and stuff, because a lot of the main roads were blocked up with debris. But yeah, that's two of the wildest, I guess, road trips we've had here recently.
I'm just curious, when it comes to watching or listening to other sportscasters as you help out with Abbeville, who are some of the guys you like to listen to, whether it's local or national? Who are some of the guys you like?
Oh, wow. Unfortunately on Fridays, I don't get to hear anybody else normally because I'm strapped in there, So Saturdays, I've become, I'm not going to say good friends, but I've conversed a couple times with Don Munson at Clemson. He is very particular about his craft, and he offers a lot of really good advice and information. So if I ever have any questions or kind of want to bend his ear, he's allowed me to do that a couple times, and I've always been really gracious of that. And he's always been very gracious with his time. National guys, man, I like Brad Nessler. Brad Nessler, yeah. He's got a great voice. He's very concise. He knows the game. He doesn't overdo it, And I really like Brad Nessler. The creme de la creme in college, I guess, would be Fowler and Herbie. People have their opinions about them, but Herbstreit's a very knowledgeable guy. I mean, he's been there, he's done that, he's made a big success out of it. So I got to respect him. But I tell you, one guy that I really love that's not even, you don't even get to hear him do games anymore, is Mike Tirico. He's pretty much stuck in the NBC booth there, doing their pre and post game and Olympic type stuff. Basically whatever he wants to do. But he had a really good run, and he's sharp. I mean, he knew the ins and outs, and I don't ever recall him missing a break or anything there. So right now, I would say probably Nessler. I wish Tirico was back at it, and on a more local level, I guess Don Munson's a guy that I try to lean on sometimes.
All right, well, Benji Greeson out of Abbeville, WZLA 92.9. We appreciate the time, and best of luck to the Abbeville Panthers. And Listen, if Abbeville makes it to Benedict College, I will be there. I'm going to have the call on the live internet stream with NFHS Network, but I always encourage people trying to tune in to, hey, that local radio call is always so much better. Or, hey, maybe you can sync it up, because I just, I as you said, you never get to listen to a whole lot on Friday nights, but, man, when I have a Friday night off, I'm sitting there on a Friday night, and I'm going, between guys like you and Jimmy Coggins up in Newberry. I love listening to all the local calls. So best of luck to the Abbeville Panthers on their way to the state championship and the drive for 5, Benji.
That's right, Tyler. Thank you so much, man. And if you ever need anything, of course, I'm just a phone call away. I really appreciate you having me on today, and best of luck the rest of the season.